So the long and short of this video is that Silent Hill Homecoming is not a good game. Hello and welcome to Donald Mackerel Gaming with me, Donald Mackerel. It's time for another one of my 1 hour reviews where I play a game for 1 hour and tell you what I think about it, give you a little bit of review about it. Today's game I have been putting off for probably over a month now, even though it won a vote as voted for by yourselves. It is of course Silent Hill Homecoming for the Xbox 360. I'll be honest with the reasons why I didn't want to play it. Basically the long and short of it is I really don't like scary games. I really don't. I'm really creeped out by them. I've got loads of scary games, never played any of them. Alien Isolation is another one I've never played simply because of the atmosphere behind it. And if I was to put that into why, as in why I find games scary, it actually goes back to the original Silent Hill.
What is this? What's going on here?
So I remember being a kid and my mate bought round a copy of Silent Hill, and like I'd played games like Resident Evil and things like that, and so I thought I'd be able to handle it. Silent Hill really creeped me out, really creeped me out. It was the atmospheric dread surrounding it, because I'm a big fan of horror films, but good horror films. I think there's a weird thing that's gone on. I don't know if it's like an American thing, might be, but like I like the creeping dread. I like the fact that there's no fighting what's coming for you. You know, it's gonna get you. I don't like the shock horror, the jump scares. You see it a lot with like Japanese films where there'll be an original Japanese film. Let's just say The Ring, for example, where Sadako slowly crawls towards you, and it's like, oh my god, it's the most horrifying thing on the planet. What do they do for the American remake? Jump scares. It's like they don't understand the source material, and it's exactly what appears to have gone on with this game. I played Silent Hill, obviously, as a kid. Played Silent Hill 2 when my mate got a PS2. Didn't play any more of the Silent Hill games. So in my head, the only experience I'd got of the Silent Hill universe was Silent Hill 2, and then another friend invited me round to, it was up in Scotland, invited me to come and have a mess around with him, and he'd got PT, the playable, is it playable trailer or playable teaser, I don't know what it's called, of the Silent Hills game that never came out, featuring Norman Reedus of The Walking Dead, and that had the same vibe. So in my head I'm thinking all these Silent Hill games in between, like after 3, 4, whatever, all the Silent Hill games must be super duper creepy and of that original vibe. So this is the first one I've played in the series since that, and it, as luck would have it, it happened to be Silent Hill Homecoming, which I'm going to make the review nice and short. It's not a good game. It's a bad game, to be honest with you. So I want to go through again my feelings on horror games. I remember the first horror game I ever played, and let's just use that in quotations, horror game, was a game called Chiller for the ZX Spectrum, which I remember my dad got me into because we bought a ZX Spectrum when I was a little kid. When everybody had Sega Mega Drives, I just about got my my ZX Spectrum 48K, and it had games like Scrabble and chess, Horace Goes Skiing, excellent game. But it also had Chiller, which my dad wouldn't let me play because it was quite spooky. But I remember watching my dad play it, and then eventually one day just deciding to give it a go myself. And it was chilling, as it says. It had zombies in it and had like weird space jelly monsters. It's got loads of like weird locations as well. Like there's a cinema level, which I thought was absolute genius. There's like a haunted house level. Yeah, that was my first experience into horror games. I probably didn't play another horror game until the first Silent Hill game came out. And there were like creepy games in between that. I wouldn't really class them as horror games. I know they get on a lot of people's horror lists, but to me, they're not really horror games. I've written down a few of them here, which I'll read out. So the first one would be Altered Beast, or Altered Beast? Altered? I don't know. Altered Beast, arcade game, but I played it on the Sega Master System. The imagery was quite gory, and it had things like zombies and so on and so forth. It had people ripping their head off and throwing it at you. It was more like going back to that American versus Japanese thing. I know it was a Japanese game, but it was more that American shock horror sort of style, where it didn't really creep up on you, it didn't really engage you, it wasn't really that scary. In fact, talking about the American versus Japanese side of things, that's how I like my films as well. I really like things like the Ring, as we mentioned before. But for American sort of films, there is the Living Dead series, so Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, there were no more Living Dead films after that. No, to be fair with you, I didn't actually mind Diary of the Dead. I thought Diary of the Dead was okay. George Romero had a good view of society. I mean, if you watch Diary of the Dead back then and know how the world is going to turn out today, you'd probably review it a little bit differently, even though the film was a bit pants, and the ones after that were quite pants.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
It wasn't just George Romero that did good American films. I mean, you've got like John Carpenter's The Thing, which is one of my favourite films of all time. Alien, what a film. Again, that dread, that creeping horror, that there is something out there that there's nothing you can do. If it gets you, you are done. Admittedly, there was a couple of jump scares in that, but it's more akin to the horror that I prefer. But back onto games again, the opposite of that would be a Mega Drive game I played called Splatterhouse. Specifically, Splatterhouse 2 was probably the most playable of the 3 games that came out on the Mega Drive. But again, not a horror game. Gets classed as a horror game. It's not a horror game. It's just an action game with gore in it. And going back to the Alien film that we were talking about, after the original Alien, they just became shock horror sort of films. And that happened with the games as well. Alien 3 I played on the Mega Drive and the SNES. Both of them just action games. Neither of them I would class as horror, yet they do keep on getting classed as such. And let's not forget that they classed Night Trap as a horror. Night Trap. They're not even vampires. They're meant to be vampires. They look like bin men. It didn't make any blooming sense to me. There was nothing scary about that game at all. And as we talked about before, my mate got me playing Resident Evil. Resident Evil, I think, had moments of creepiness, but by and large, it was your American shock horror zombie sort of affair. So yeah, nothing really spooked me out until that same friend got me playing Silent Hill, which is why I was dreading this game. I thought, oh no, we are back to that creepy sort of horror. Not your Americanized horror, it's your Japanese style horror. Little did I know, the license for making these games had been given to several different companies, and yeah, they just evolved over time. It became worse and worse. It's almost like they just franchised out the name. Like when you go to a McDonald's, you can't expect the same quality in each McDonald's because someone's just paid to use that name. I think that pretty much was what had happened with Silent Hill Homecoming.
Good luck, soldier.
Right, so I've written down, because anybody who's watched my live streams knows that my memory's awful. So what I've done, I've written down roughly what happened as we go through the game. So if you see me holding a pad up like so, it's so I can know what's going on. So we're going to start off with the opening, which reminded me of yet another fantastic film. But it was almost like a scene for film rip-off of it. I don't know if anybody's seen Jacob's Ladder. Jacob's Ladder, absolutely quality film. Tim Robbins playing the main character in it. Look at the opening of Jacob's Ladder and look at the opening of Silent Hill Homecoming and tell me it's not a direct rip-off. Oh wait, it's bang on exactly the same. Yeah, I put here, an injured soldier strapped to a trolley with disturbing images and someone gets impaled, and that's sort of like, that's the end of it. That's the clip. He just ends up sort of like stuck in a little room, strapped to his bed, watching someone get impaled. It brings you on to something that really, really irked me, was the opening of the game, where this is where you find out that the game is incredibly linear, because every single door seems to have a damaged lock. It's like, oh, come on, you must have different ways of directing people into a certain direction. No, they just tell you, oh, that lock's broken, that lock's broken, that lock's broken. This one's all right, though. You can go through this one door out of the 4. Why bother? Why bother putting all this stuff in if you're not going to let people explore and not let people do their own thing? And yes, I know that this is the training ground, per se. It's the area that they're using to get used to the controls, but it also gets you used to how bad the game is. So then you see somebody known as Josh. Again, at this point, you don't know anything. It's not giving you any backstory. You know nothing's going on. You hear a weird voice calling out Alex. Turns out that's your name. So unless you've read the blooming manual, you have no idea who Alex is. You are Alex. There we go. But then you meet somebody called Josh, a little kid. Straight away, you can work out that he's a relation of Alex. Seems to be a little bit of a brat as well. Doesn't really pay attention to anything. And that brings you on to your first puzzle there, because you want to try and get to Josh, but he's stuck behind the gated doorway. So puzzles used to be a big thing with old horror games, like your Resident Evil series, if you remember them from the original PlayStation. It had lots and lots and lots of puzzle sections. Silent Hill had the odd puzzle section. This, I wouldn't class it as a puzzle. It's literally where the number pad is, literally right around the corner from it. You see 3 numbers, then you walk through the game until you see the other 3 numbers, and you put them together to make 6 numbers to let you get through the door. That's not a puzzle. That's awful. And then it brings you to the next bit, which is, again, it just gives away the plot straight away. There's a note that basically says that there's an escaped mental patient in this facility. I wonder who that could be. Konami. Well, obviously it's you. You are the escaped mental patient. At the start, it sort of makes out that you're some sort of soldier. Well, not at the start. In the future, it makes out that you're some sort of soldier that's come home to visit his family. Right before that, it pretty much tells you that you're an escaped mental patient. So now you're thinking, right, I'm an escaped mental patient. There's notes everywhere saying about things that I may or may not have done. I've killed this kid, haven't I? I've killed this young lad. And hey presto, when I did a bit of a Google after playing it, yes, that's exactly what I've done. They give the entire story away right in the prologue to the game. There's a crying baby noise in the background, like you walk into a room, there's a crying baby just wailing its head off. No payoff to that whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. Just completely blank. And then there's a jump scare for no reason. A guy just dangles from the ceiling. And when you look at if you pause to look at that body, it doesn't do anything, can't hurt you. If you pause while it's swaying, it just sways non-stop. There's no momentum, just carries on going and going. And you look at it and it just shows you how poor the graphics are too. So you go back to Josh anyway, you put the 6 numbers in, you open the gate up and he runs away. Obviously he's scared, so it's another hint that you've probably hurt or, as it turns out, killed this child, who, by the way, ends up being your little brother. No mention of this at the start. You have no idea what's going on. As far as you're concerned, this is just a little kid. You have no sort of like proper relation to him. You're just wondering, why is this guy just chasing after this kid? Is it his kid? What's going on? Has he just seen there's a kid stuck in this mental institution? No story whatsoever. Now, this brings us to the first encounter with an enemy in the game, and also the stupidest bit where you pick up a knife. You go into some toilets, you pick up a knife, and straight away it does the old Silent Hill world change where everything goes a bit orange and rusty. And you get your first ever enemy. Guess what it is? Sexy nurse. It worked in Silent Hill 2. And I think because that became like quite infamous, it was like, ooh, weird, kinky, sexy nurse bubble head thing. They just decided to put it in Silent Hill games after that. Again, I only found this out from researching afterwards. So all I'd ever seen was Silent Hill 2 with the weird things in. Didn't play another one apart from PT, where the enemy in that was truly, truly frightening. Never played anything again until Homecoming. What's the first thing I see? The weird, sexy nursing that staggers towards you, holding a blooming knife. So I touched on it before with the jump scare. It is at this point that you notice that the graphics belong on a PS2. There's no difference between Silent Hill 2 and this game. They're really, really poor, to be honest with you. The combat belongs on a PS1. Like you've got so much you can do. The competition between this and other games at the time, and all they can give you is stabby, 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 and now they've given you a dodge button too. It's terrible. The first nurse, this big scary enemy that comes at you with a knife, literally I did nothing. I just stood there pressing my attack button, stab, 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 stab. After about 4 or 5 attempts, just killed her. She didn't even get a hit on me. What's the point? What's the point in having an enemy if there's no fear in place? Yeah, I then went on to fight my next bout of enemies. Well, there was 2 nurses, literally didn't land a hit on me. They just stood there and waited for me to stab them. It's pointless. Like, whilst I was attacking one, the other one just waited a turn, like it's some sort of old martial arts film. From that, it went on to some insects. There was like weird bugs that came out the ground, started flying around. You meant to use your dodge mechanic and then attack them. Didn't bother. Stab, stab, stab. They all died. And then there was 3 nurses. That was the big one. That was the climax. 3 nurses descend on me and try to attack me. I think I got hit once. And again, I didn't move around. I didn't do anything. Just kept pressing my attack button. Killed all 3 nurses. Only got stabbed once by one coming at me from the side. Terrible. Talking of terrible, so we've said the puzzles are terrible, but also the pacing. The pacing of this game is boring. It is so dull. At no point, I am really, really easy to scare. Really easy. At no point was I scared. I just sat there thinking how bad this game was. I did try to record like a camera of me playing it. Literally, it was just dull. It was just me sat there. I was like, for an hour. I can't put that up. I thought I'd get some nice jump scares. We got absolutely nothing. It's very, as I mentioned before, very linear. You've got no choice in what you do, really. And not only that, it tells you what to do. You go to the blooming pause menu and it literally tells you exactly what it wants you to do next. You have no choice and you don't have to think what to do. It tells you exactly what to do. Terrible. So it's an Xbox 360 game as well. Remember that, an Xbox 360 game with minimal voice acting. Everything is text. They couldn't be bothered to get voice actors in for all the different bits. They just put it up with text. Terrible. Absolutely awful. Josh, the little kid that you're chasing around that turns out is your brother. You don't know that at the start.
Go away.
Annoying. I didn't want to save him. Literally, if it was me in that situation and he kept on running away and being annoying, there's a bit where he asks you to get his little rabbit for him, his toy, is it called Robbie Rabbit? Asks you to get that for him. You bloody stick your arm into a hole, God knows what's inside there, something grabs hold of you, you pull this bloody rabbit out, give it to Josh, doesn't even thank you, just runs away again. I don't understand what they're trying to build with this. Like, there's no sort of no pathos, if you know what I mean. There's nothing there to build a relationship between you and this annoying little kid. Yeah, then you get into a lift as well. That's the next bit. You call a lift, you get into the lift, which is obviously dumb. Why would you trap yourself in a box? And hey presto, big knife comes through the lift, stabs you, you're dead. But doesn't matter, because it was all just a dream. So you then sort of like flick to the actual opening of Silent Hill Homecoming. You wake up, you're in like a truck. Some guy's giving you a lift somewhere. This is not the start of Resident Evil 2, despite it being pretty much exactly the same. You're heading home and you get stopped by someone called Judge Holloway. Again, no background on this character. You just get told this is Judge Holloway. So now I'm thinking, right, I've probably injured or killed my, as it turns out, little brother. I just knew it as a kid. Probably injured or killed this little kid. I've been stuck in a mental hospital. Now I'm talking to a judge. I wonder how she is related to the entire situation. Yeah, she's the judge that sent you down. God, you have like a really, really, really awkward conversation. It's really badly scripted. You go back to your house because she tells you to. She tells you to go and see your mum. You go back, it's completely empty. You then wander around your house, bored stiff. Wander around your house, finding little things, finding notes and pictures. You then have your next terrible puzzle, which is pushing. You've got books on a bookshelf. It lets you zoom it, like it tells you this is something you need to look at. You go and have a look at it. Books on a bookshelf. You click on the books. They all move over to the left. A secret door opens up. How's that a puzzle? Absolutely blooming useless. Why would you have this in your house as well? It makes no sense. There's a little flashback to Josh, who again turns out to be your brother. Looking at it, he has a bad dream. So the entire point of this flashback was that you give him a torch so he feels safe, and then you find this torch. So of course that becomes your torch to use in the game. Really, really awful, like shoehorning items in there. You go back downstairs again just because there's nothing in the house. It's completely empty. And then you see like a trail of soot across the floor, like ash, and your mum in a rocking chair facing the corner of the room, just rocking away like a complete and utter, mental. You have another awkward conversation. What is it with this game and awkward conversations? You have an awkward conversation with your mum. It's just gibberish, absolute blooming gibberish. And I should add as well, all the way through this, like since the start of getting out of the truck, remember, this guy's just given me a lift. I get out of this truck, I walk up, I meet a judge, I go in, I talk to my mum. All the way through that, I'm brandishing a knife. Absolutely, you're just holding a knife like, talk to me, give me a lift truck, man. It makes no blooming sense whatsoever. So you go down into the flooded cellar. You're back in the house. You've just talked to your mum. You go down into the cellar. It's completely flooded. No rhyme or reason as to why this cellar is flooded. And then, again, completely out of the blue, the world hasn't changed. It hasn't gone into the Silent Hill mode. There's been no sirens. Nothing's gone orange. This monster just comes out of the water and starts attacking you, which, I should add, looks exactly like a licker from Resident Evil 2. So it's just, this game is just stealing from everything. It's, oh my word. Yeah, so you fight the licker, which again, isn't a hard fight. You just stabby, down it goes. You then get a clicker for the garage, go out, open the garage to get a fuel can. There's only one thing to do in each of those locations. It's not like there's a selection of things and you go, I wonder what it is I have to do. Literally, everywhere you go, it unlocks one thing. You take that one thing, you go to somewhere else where it tells you to go in the pause menu, you find one more thing. It's just a linear chain of events. You fill the fuel can up at a truck, which again is guarded by a licker for some unknown reason. You then go down into the cellar and fill up the pump with the fuel, empty all the water out of it. You then get a flashback of your dad. You had one earlier. Your dad was like chopping up people. It's like, what the hell? How can you not at this point work out that there's something going on with this family? This family's a little bit weird. But you have you go into another section of the house at this point. You have another dad flashback where you get a tape. You put a tape into the tape player, and it's your dad being really, really creepy with your brother. So it's at this point you work out that your family are the problem as well. So even though you're probably a mental institute patient, your family are very, very messed up. And you then get told to leave the house to go and find your brother Josh. That was the 1 hour point, and I've never been so glad to not have to play the game anymore in my life. All we need is to review it with Gaga. Let's go on to my Gaga review now. As we all know, Gaga is graphics, audio, gameplay and appeal. We'll start off with graphics. I'm going to fly through this because I really don't want to take up any more of your time. The graphics, as I said before, they're a PS2 standard. Really, really poor, really low level graphics. And as I mentioned before, they're even worse if you look at inconsequential stuff. Like I say, there was a body hanging from the ceiling that I zoomed in on. Not just that, if you look at signs, you look at things in their house, it's like they haven't even bothered. They're just selling the game based on a name. And it's because of that. I wanted to go lower. I thought it would be a little bit cheeky since I've got a lot of games to review for the 360. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10, and that's me being generous. Audio. Now, I will say this is the game has some good audio. Not fantastic, but good. It's really creepy, really atmospheric. As I said earlier on, there was a baby sort of noise. Sadly, there was no payoff to it, but the noise itself was quite creepy. You hear scraping noises, clunks, moans. There was a bit right at the start where someone just goes, "Alex," and I was like, what the hell's going on? But none of it was scary, but it was atmospheric. The bit that it's let down on, though, I would say is not so much the voice acting. I would just say the actual dialogue. The dialogue's really, really poor. So yeah, because of that, because it is good and only mildly flawed, I'm going to be generous again and give it an 8 out of 10. Now, gameplay. Right. Bear in mind, as I was playing the game, I was just jotting down words. Here are the words that I used to sum up the gameplay. Terrible, awkward, boring, slow, pointless, stupid, non-stop trekking. I want to turn this game off. all of that was honest. I hoped I could have turned the game off like at several points, but I kept on checking my watch and going, no, we're nowhere near the hour yet. Yeah, really, really bad game. I can't give anything a 0 out of 10. It literally doesn't have to work to give it a 0 out of 10. So it's getting a 1 out of 10. And the final section is the appeal. Do I want to play this game again? Oh, well, this might be a bit of a spoiler for you, but no, I don't want to play this game again. In fact, if I wasn't collecting as many Xbox 360 games as I can, because I do want to try and get a big collection of Xbox 360 games, I would sell this game. I would sell it because it's so blooming bad. Definitely never, ever want to play it again. It's made me not want to play any more games from the Silent Hill franchise. Please let me know if there were any decent games after number 2. Let me know. I think I may have played another one since, like in between, but I just didn't realise it was a Silent Hill game. It was on the PS Vita, and it played nothing like a Silent Hill game. It was more like a Gauntlet style game, really. Just an isometric viewpoint going around slashing things. A little bit of an RPG actually, so didn't seem akin to this. If there's any more that were like Silent Hill or Silent Hill 2, please let me know, because this was terrible. I can't play this game. And so, totting those scores up, we got 13 out of 40. 13. So it's over a quarter, mainly because of the audio. Everything else was abysmal. It's the worst game I have probably ever played, and the biggest letdown. So let me know what you think. What are your honest views on this game? And at least this shows that I'm not going to be positive about everything. You know, I will be very, very objective. But please let me know. Did you enjoy it? Is there anybody out that thought this was a good game? Am I talking for want of a better word? To me, it was just a really, really bad game. But it might be your cup of tea. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, this is a disappointed Donald Mackerel. Hopefully we'll be playing a better game next time. I'll see you all again soon, everyone. Cheers.